All right. Welcome to the Human Rights Literacy Workshop, Group 5, with Brooke, Cassandra, Bill, and Caleb.
Human rights literacy is defined as a literacy that empowers citizens to act and live in a society which social justice is the prerequisite for human dignity. What does this mean for your business or employees? This means that you have a duty to your employees to give them knowledgeable information on human rights and to let them know how important these rights are. These rights include things like pay, pension, time or leave, 401k retirement plans, free legal representation, and these are just some of the basic human rights that they can find in the workplace.
Purpose. The purpose of this workshop is to define human rights, to discuss and educate leaders and employees on their human rights, to explain the correlation of human rights and its effects on adult learning, to explain the importance of understanding human rights in unions.
So we've got a little video to highlight unions, sort of an inspirational video, talks a little bit about the heritage. So here we go. So pause that video a little bit short, just because that was like a video I think would be good to show at the beginning of a workshop, sort of getting everyone inspired. Like, what are we gonna learn here? So moving on to the learning outcomes. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that we incorporate is some of the stuff from the text we've been reading, some of the stuff we've learned in the class. So one of Lindemann's key assumptions is that adults' orientation to learning is life-centered. So you figure these are new hires coming into a new job, you know, that's a big life change. So I would definitely say that these adults are ready to learn because this is a big life event, a big change for them, something they want to know about. And then also one of the process models for learning is to create a mechanism for mutual planning, sort of to let the students help in planning what they're going to learn. So we have a little exercise that'll be explained during the workshop for that as well. So also we're going to want the students at the end of this to be able to define human rights, not necessarily like a dictionary definition, but in their own words, not something they memorize, but what they be able to verbalize what human rights means to them. And also they need to know why they need to know them, because what good is knowing something if you don't really know how to use it and why you should know it. And then we also want to talk a little bit about what a union is, and have them understand what a union is and understand what a union does. I also think it's important that we touch on the legislation concerning unions. So the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights basically outlines, the 30 human rights by law. So I think that's important for us to touch on in the workshop. And also the union members' Bill of Rights. So there's 5 of them. So they have their own Bill of Rights for union members. And the National Labor Relations Act, which is also important because it explains sort of the legalities in the context of, you being a union member at work, what you're allowed to talk about in terms of being a member of the union, what's legal for you to do and what's illegal for your employer to do. Okay, so this is kind of what know what you have the right to do, know what your employer is, know what's illegal for your employer to do, and that's what the National Labor Relations Act sort of talks about. So I think it's important that our students know that. And also, everyone likes benefits, so we need to make sure that they know what benefits they should be receiving, and that way they can make sure that they are getting everything they're entitled to.
So the context of this workshop will be there's a new company coming to an area that's going to bring over 1,000 different new jobs. And many of the people who are going to go and work in the warehouse have worked in either the local restaurants or, family-owned businesses. So they're making their, for just, more benefits, more money, just new opportunities as life is getting hard to find jobs sometimes. They're moving into the warehouse world, more into that corporation. And so we're meeting with the new employees of the surrounding area to discuss with them all of their human rights that they have as employees, so that they don't feel or it doesn't happen that they get any of those human rights violated by this company. And so our workshop that we'll hold with them, what are my human rights? So what is the workshop? We're going to ensure that the new workers know that their human rights as they step into the new and large company, and they're aware of the workers' union and the processes in which to get a union formed. We're going to hold it in the town civic center just because there'll be enough seating for all the people who are making the transition into the warehouse. And then there's microphone and speakers, and then the materials that we're going to pass out are the United Steelworkers labor relations flyer to show what a great example of a union, what it is and what they did with that, and then we'll give them a copy of the 30 human rights as discussed by the UN. And the steps that we're going to take is, first we're going to cover the 30 human rights, so that we'll let them all know what their human rights exactly are. After that, to kind of give a little bit of self-direction, and allow in that andragogy for adult learners to have a say in what they're learning. We're going to let all the workers vote for their top 5 of the 30 human rights, so that they can, hear a little bit more about specific ones in our big meeting. We're going to anonymously do that vote, take the top 5, and then flesh each one of those out in detail. And then we're going to connect those to everyday life. And, for example, if they are all interested in what leave they're allowed, then we're going to connect that into how that works into that work-life balance, and that everybody is entitled to be able to take off days without it affecting their pay. And then explain how all of these also carry over to other jobs, as if they ever decide to leave the warehouse, be informed to be able to take these tenants, like I said, have that knowledge as whenever they transfer. And then for the next 6 weeks, as they start their job and everything, we're going to meet with individuals discreetly, so that, their bosses aren't seeing that we're meeting with them, or that they're not going and anybody is seeing that. It doesn't have to be anything public. And we're going to meet with them, and they can discuss with us any of the human rights and the processes to take in case any of them are being violated.
The evaluation process. The evaluation process, we want to open with a simple questionnaire with 5 basic questions to gauge the pre-existing knowledge of human rights in the workplace. After the training, there will be representatives on hand to have one-on-one conversations with trainees and to provide more information on human rights as needed. The last step of this is a final questionnaire to be filled out a week after training to gauge the information retained from the workshop. Sources and theories. The theory behind the workshop is that when new employees start working there for the company, there is a lack of knowledge and understanding of their human rights, and the presentation is to present the facts and information in a way that will allow employees to get better understanding and to help them remember those rights. We have used sources like the Steelworkers of America and union websites and Globalization of Human Rights that provide factual data collection and information. In conclusion, we discussed civil rights and improve important information to all employees as they start their new chapter with our company.